to the 40K Fireside podcast, where we discuss everything to do with competitive Warhammer 40K with your hosts Vic Vijay and David Gaylard.
And I even transitioned us to the right scene. I didn't default to the wrong one.
We are pros now.
Oh man, we're back, everyone, and it's your quarterly fix of the faction tier list. And if you underperform with your faction, then you're a loser and you're bad at the game. And if you overperform with a bad faction, then we're not wrong. You're just excellent and you're a genius. That's the way that Warhammer works, isn't it?
Spot on. Spot on.
Welcome back, everyone. This is going to be a great episode. We've got a couple of house cleaning things, some exciting stuff that's been happening in Fireside. On the Discord, now, the Discord is always popping off. We got such great chat there on the members side, but we've also got a group coaching session that's happening twice a month for 1 hour, where you can just stop in and get coaching. We've got none other than Liam VSL coming by, so it's like a drop-in style clinic. Liam will just be there for the hour, and anyone can jump in, ask questions and stuff like that. We've already paid for his time. And then starting from next month, Vic and I are going to be doing an hour slot on top of that as well. So there's going to be 4 hours total of coaching that you can get access to across the Discord with the member side as well. So just wanted to give a big shout out to our members. You know, we've had some members on our Discord. Well, we've got quite a few members on our Discord that have been there for 6 months as well, which is kind of crazy that we started that journey 6 months ago. So shout out to the OG members there, and we're going to be putting together something special. We got some physical goods perhaps lining up here in a bit as well that we're going to be embarking on. So that's going to be fun.
I just want to throw in for actually joining the different levels of membership on YouTube. Our Catachan level, the base level, is still great for seeing all of the members only videos that we kind of put out, and we do put those out regularly. But if you do want to join in with the Discord, get access to the open coaching, which is included in that, just make sure to join at the Phoenix Lord level, which is the middle level there.
Yeah, and Vic and I chat all the time in the Discord, so you can just ask us questions or whatever like that. Alongside that, as we've got Liam coming for group coaching, I've just done the combat masterclass with Liam, which is on sale for £20. It's the most I've learned in 2 days for the last year and a half of I've played Warhammer. Genuinely, my comfort level of playing against combat armies is like through the roof now. I understand it so much more. There's so many things I didn't see now that I see now, because I primarily play shooting and like combined arms. Combined arms is probably what I'm playing most these days. So playing against these combat armies like Blood Angels is going to be really popular. So if you play combat armies or you play against them a lot, that one is an absolute banger. I mean, the whole Discord was going crazy when I announced that we were doing that with Liam. So not only is he doing the masterclass, he's always doing the coaching on the Discord as well. So check that out. And last but not least, we are looking for a graphic artist as well. We're going to be doing some projects as well. So if you're a graphic artist that does kind of this comic book style illustration work, we'd love to hear from you. Feel free to send us an email. You can email 40kfireside@gmail.com. Or get in touch on Discord if that's easier for you. We can have a chat. We'd love to work together and bring some stuff here. So there we go.
Yep. And with the masterclasses, just make sure, guys, that is on 40kfireside.com. And I want to give one big shout out to Goonhammer again. Thank you guys for awesome content, but also amazing artworks here, which we're going to use for our tier list, just so it's super clear. I think these are the clearest ways of doing it. But if you guys have any doubts or anything, try and leave it in the comments. And I'm going to try and put some timestamps in the comments as well to make life a little easier for you.
Ooh, you're a legend. All right, let's go into it. Vic, should we just start from the end, perhaps, or do you just want me to pick a random one every time?
Go for it, Dave. Well, what's catching your eye? I think we're in layers, aren't we? Let's go for the front layer, something on there.
The front layer? Well, why don't we go with GK? How about that?
Yeah, cool. So Grey Knights got a little buff on the points, which we discussed in our last video where we went through the whole balanced data slate. Now, in terms of the meta, I don't think that shifts them very much in power level. Grey Knights is still a relatively one-dimensional army who, don't have too many data sheets to rely on, and they have always lacked in this kind of anti-tank output in their army. And actually, realistically, even their non-anti-tank output doesn't actually add up to much. They end
Yeah.
up with these really tanky kind of lists that, just sometimes either die too quickly or don't kill enough too quickly.
I feel like Grey Knights, you always like if you're playing Grey Knights, isn't playing against Blood Angels just the worst feeling ever? You're just like, oh, they've got a 10-man Death Company unit that can like slam into my unit, and I don't really ever get the chance to charge them first. Is that kind of yeah.
I mean, you'd think that an army which is entirely 2+ armor saves is actually going to be quite durable, but in reality, the stuff does die quick enough that it doesn't really stand up to armies which have extremely high output. Blood Angels is definitely one of them, but you're going to hit Thousand Suns, Death Guard, which are high output armies, and they're just going to walk through your army. So I personally think Grey Knights are maybe one of the worst armies in the game at the moment. But just because of their little bit of inbuilt durability, their win rate will never drop down too low. But personally, I'm going to go in with this, Dave. If you play against Grey Knights at a tournament, you are going to be happy you got a Grey Knights pairing almost regardless of what army you have.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm going to say they should be in D tier.
Oof. Yeah, I'm feeling that too, to be honest with you. I think that's a really good metric. Like, are you scared about playing against this army ever? The answer is, if you played every single other army in the game, maybe even Admech, I'd probably be okay, I feel like you'd probably be happy with that matchup, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You'd be immediately like, that could have been a lot worse.
yeah. You would even say something like, oh, thank God it wasn't, I don't know, the new Tau or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Speaking about new Tau, why don't we segue into that? That's an interesting one.
Yeah, sure. What are your thoughts?
Let me ask you a question, Vic. Before the buff, where would you have had them? In C tier somewhere?
You know what? It wasn't so long ago that we had rated Tau quite highly because of LGT and how good Lewis did with them. They haven't really replicated the success too much, and I managed to play them a few times. I played Kyle a couple of times now. And the army is really weird because on paper it looks absolutely outrageous. It looks like they just have so much stuff. And I think that still holds true. But for some reason, when it comes to actually killing them and stuff, they suddenly just drop off in the middle of the game. Have the rules changes really changed that significantly? I'm not sure. I think realistically, they probably were a B tier army before, maybe even the top of C tier. What do you think, Dave?
Interesting. So I think the overall change for Tau was actually a big buff if you play it in the right way. And I think the right way to play it is genuinely the Tiger Shark. The Tiger Shark was by far the most buffed unit out of the balanced status slate for Tau, 100%. Mainly because you can split fire. You can kind of build this Tau list, and I've been talking with Lewis Smith, who I'll probably get on. He lives just down the road from me, so I'll probably get him around here to talk about it. And we're playing a game on Sunday in person, actually. And his list is kind of like, you've got a lot of this anti-elite infantry, and then just like 16 Seeker missiles for all your anti-tank. And because you don't really suffer the penalty from split shotting with Guide now, you actually got like a good mix of finally anti-tank and output. So the output's changed a lot. And it is a kind of list where you need the Tiger Shark to shoot repeatedly. So, actually, I'm going to go out on a whim here and say that I think Tau could be maybe in the upper part of B tier, if I'm being honest with you.
I don't think they extend into A tier, to be honest.
Yeah, for sure.
But I would agree with you. I think now that their rules have been cleaned up a little bit, I think they are a B tier army. They're a nice middle of the pack kind of army.
Yeah, there is a caveat with that, and I'm just going to copy and paste one of these as well, because that is revolved around a particular unit, and I just accept the fact that not everyone's going to have access to a Tiger Shark.
I'm not so honed in on the Tiger Shark. I think without a Tiger, I think the Tiger Shark makes the army stronger, but I think that the army is still a solid B tier army even without the Tiger Shark.
Okay, I'll leave it then without the Tiger.
Yeah, I think it is just a classic B tier army. It's decent into a lot of the meta. It can do mission play even if it can't kill the opponent, and it can kill the opponent.
And I feel like the only thing is it can have those turns where it is prone to whiffing a little bit. But I actually think the buffs actually smoothed out its early game a lot, because you don't have to overextend with so many units, and the list building is a lot better. So all round definite buff in my opinion.
Nice.
Okay, why don't we go along to, what's this one sneaking behind here? Ooh, is that Chaos Knights?
That's Imperial Knights. That is. Okay, Imperial Knights have got no changes, if I'm correct, and no codex, if I'm correct.
Yes, you are correct. Yep.
So they are just where they are, which is
Mm-hmm.
statistically one of, if not the best army in the game at the moment, which is really interesting to me, to be honest.
Yep.
What do you think, Dave? Have you played against? You did play against Chaos
Yeah.
Knights recently.
So I played against Kit Hannah Smith, who plays quite a bit of Chaos Knights on GW terrain. And I was pretty impressed on that terrain format. You know, they get a lot better, and the Titanic shooting knights get a lot better because of the ability to touch into a terrain feature and see through the board, or just to put an armature on the terrain plate and then shoot through it wholly within it. You know, the detachment rule is actually really good, Vic. You get like a hit or wound reroll, and you get a 6-up feel no pain. Like,
Yep. Really, really strong.
Like really, really good.
5-up if they kill your warlord as well. Really powerful.
Yeah. You know, I think one thing that's interesting is when we have a blend of audience, and America is actually our largest audience and is growing, which is no surprise because it's a much larger market. And I think you have to respect the fact that on their terrain format, Knights are significantly better. So I think we have to put them somewhere in A tier here.
100%.
And I don't think the win rate should really reflect exactly where they should go, because let's say, for example, a 70% win rate. Well, a 70% win rate is not actually 4-1 in a tournament, right? So is a S tier army 4-1? No, I don't think so. An S tier army is like a 5-0 army, right? If you're going to kind of equate it that way. Now, there's never a 100% accurate kind of analogy for any of this or equivalency. So just go with the flow on that one. But somewhere in A tier, and I think we'll shuffle it.
You bring up such a good point there, Dave, because when we're looking at these Meta Monday stats and we look at all the tournaments here, if an army and a player goes 5-0 at a 400-person tournament, and then they go 5-0 at a 30-person GT, I think the level of skill is quite different between the two. I personally found that going to the end of a big super major is way harder, because the kind of players those tournaments attract, you start to hit good players all the way through the tournament. Whereas at a local GT, which is 30 person, there may only be one other really good player there who you're competing against. So when you look at the stats, both of them are worth equal in terms of wins on a Meta Monday tournament, both in terms of percentage and also event wins. So it's very interesting, how much of a factor that has on Imperial Knights here, and just generally when you're looking at stats. So I tell people just to keep an eye on that. But it goes, even if Imperial Knights is a proper 3-2 army, a 4-1 army, I think it's worth us keeping it in A tier. So I agree with you, even if it's not necessarily taking it to winning massive tournaments outside of
the
USA.
last time, and I'm not trying to throw shade here. The last time I read Meta Monday?
Oh, yeah.
Probably like 4 months ago.
Mate, I read that every single week. I send screen clippings of that to our team chat to justify whatever point I'm trying to make at the time. So I'll never send any Ynnari stats. That's guaranteed.
That's the way that Warhammer works, isn't it? It's really interesting. Not to shill the Discord even more here, but you're going to get a much more relevant opinion or factual piece of information that's relevant to your context that you're playing in if you're just talking to an experienced player than if you are talking to someone or looking at a statistic. That's the be all end all of it, really, isn't it?
Yep, absolutely.
No statistic is going to tell you whether or not Imperial Knights are better on UKTC or GW, unlike like an actual player. No statistic is going to ask you, what is your meta like? Are you going to a 30-person GT? Do you know the other 3 top players there? Do you know what armies they're going to be playing with? Well, you should probably not play Knights in that case, right? So it's winning a tournament and how good a faction is are actually different things as well. Winning a tournament comes down to a lot of factors, and a lot of which are usually outside of your control.
I would say I think a lot of armies have the output to deal with Imperial Knights towards the top of the meta at the moment, in a way that maybe wasn't there about a year ago, I'd say. So I'm not sure this meta is entirely stable for Knights to actually do really well at the top end, but I think people have solved it enough that it's just going to do well across the board generally.
Yeah, they're a bit of a gatekeeper, I think. It's a good way of explaining it. All right. What about Drukhari?
Oh,
Vic,
Drukhari.
I don't know anything about this faction.
Oh, Drukhari. You know what? Drukhari, it's there in the back of my mind, Dave.
Oh, yeah?
Like
Wow.
I'm looking at Eldar and I'm like, oh, I wish I had Eldar with a little bit of melee, and it's just there creeping around. How about Drukhari? Like, how about Drukhari? What's in your box? And with the Reaper's detachment getting reroll ones to hit all the time now, I think that opens up a lot of play with a few little points decreases. I think you can get a decent amount of stuff into a Drukhari list,
Mhm.
and they have good mission play, good anti-tank, and good melee components.
Okay.
They don't necessarily have the most volume,
Okay.
but I think there might be enough there to actually do quite well with Drukhari. And the big question for Drukhari Aeldari players is Drukhari in a better position than Aeldari? And I think people are just underrating Drukhari a little bit when it comes to that discussion.
Okay.
I would say that Drukhari have come out of C tier and they're more a
Ooh.
B tier army now.
Okay.
I think
Why is that? What have I missed here? Like, what have they got buffed recently? Because I've self-confessed, I think I've barely even played against Drukhari as well. But it's not a faction I look forward to playing, if you know what I mean. Like, they're pretty fast. Their transports everywhere.
Transport based melee with decent output, and now you've got a bit more consistency from the best detachment.
Okay.
You remember you were saying with Tyranids, you've got
Mm.
reroll ones to hit. That is the best detachment in the book
Yeah.
immediately. We've kind of got that with Drukhari here,
Okay. Nice.
because people were playing it for the stratagems and not really the detachment rule. But now you just
Ooh.
have flat reroll ones to hit for the
Mhm.
whole army. Is kind of beautiful. So I think Drukhari might be a sleeper hit here, and I'd be very interested to see what Drukhari players do, because they tend to be relatively high skill players.
They're a small
Uh,
but proud player base.
yeah, absolutely. So I may even dip my hands in and have a little go with Drukhari.
Oh, talk dirty to me. So somewhere in B tier, we can shuffle that one along.
Sure, yeah.
That's gonna be hard to nail down right from the get go.
Hmm.
Okay, what about Admech?
Oh, yeah.
I think Admech goes squarely in. It is a prime example of just could be buffed. I think, it did get a little bit of a buff last patch,
Okay.
if I'm going to call that balanced data slate. I have not been. You know, when I started, I was playing Admech as well, and I have a bit of an Admech collection. But when Halo's Creed, the Grotmus detachment came out, I was pretty unimpressed with it. I was pretty hyped with it initially, but the more I played it, I thought, man, Skitarii Hunter cohort is just better than this, because you're trying. It's a classic army of, like, you're trying to jam the best data sheets, which are these 2 wound 5-up models that have good melee, and all of a sudden 5-up feel no pain and like a reactive move become your best stratagems by far. Then, so it's pretty lackluster army, I think, is a good way of saying it. And if you go into some of these top armies, like, man, you are gonna either bounce or you're gonna get melted like really fast, I think.
Hmm.
So tough position to be in, I think, in my opinion.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. I think I wonder with Admech what happened, because I
Not a
remember
lot. That's the thing.
they came out in ninth edition, and their codex for some reason had every rule but a bit better than everyone else. And ever since then, and the nerf of that, I feel like they've just been scared to make Admech decent.
Yeah.
So Admech have struggled through 10th edition, I think.
I don't think it's a very large player base that plays Admech as well, to be honest with you.
Hmm.
Mainly because their models are expensive and very cumbersome to transport. Like Taraxi Skystalkers and Ruststalkers are like actually annoying to build and transport, and it's not a very user-friendly army, I think I would say. No shade out to all the Admech players out there. I've got these models myself, but yeah, it's a bit of a tough life, I think, if you're an Admech lover.
Yep. Talking about shade, why don't we do Shadow Legion and the
Oh,
demons? I want to hear your
wow,
thoughts on
okay.
that.
So I just did the masterclass with Mike Pestilence, actually, about this balanced data slate, covering all of the demons detachments, by the way, which was very eye-opening. Mike from Warphammer, who has the blog over there, shout out to Mike. These guys are definitely an A tier for me, and they are definitely better than Knights. I think that if you're going to play demons, so weirdly enough, Vic, I think demons actually have Plague Legion, Demonic Incursion. They've got Shadow Legion, even Scintillating Legion, and so they've got 4 very viable detachments, I would say, to play here, and they all kind of play a bit differently. I think Shadow Legion's probably the strongest, and depending on what terrain format you play, if you're playing GW, you probably want to play the Fade Thirster, and if you're playing WTC or UKTC, you probably want to play the Chosen Brick here. And I think that's probably the strongest attachment, Shadow Legion. But in a teams format, demons actually offer a lot. I think the Plague Legion is actually a really interesting build here, like mono Nurgle, and in addition, kind of demonic incursion with just lots of fat boys is actually can really catch a lot of people off guard too. So I definitely think they're an A tier. I could see them ending up like round about the middle of A tier. They only took about 40 points on Shadow Legion, and one of those enhancements with the 9-inch scout, you don't even have to play. But if you're playing the ACDC brick, you probably want to play. So they're really a faction that I think is dictated a little bit more by what faction's at the top, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Because, for example, when Aeldari was at the top and really popular, ACDC brick was just absolute money there, right?
Mm-hmm.
9-inch, you Nurgling drop and your 9-inch pre-game scout, and you just all in them on turn one with your ACDC brick, and then you have 18 Screamers after that. And how do you even beat that with Aeldari, right? Mm-hmm. Very difficult. So, yeah, I mean, Be'lakor's fantastic still. Scarbrand is really great at 300 points. So firmly in the A tier, from my opinion. I think Shadow Legion definitely a really good one, and I'm surprised they didn't get nerfed a little bit more than they did actually.
Mm-hmm. Nice, I love the analysis. Yeah, cool. Yeah,
Nice.
great time to be a Chaos Demon player. I think
Yeah.
they've got lots of different viable builds competitively.
Yes, for sure, and really, they're pretty adaptive, I would say actually.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on what terrain format you're playing or what is at the top of the meta. I think they're a bit better on GW, which is really cool as well.
Cool. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, since you put me in the shtick, I'm going to give you. Where's Aeldari?
Oh, on the far right.
Oh, right. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Here we go, Vic.
There's a lot to talk about here. I'll try and be concise, but I think we have a lot of Eldar listeners. So Eldar is very interesting because Eldar at its greatest, at the time when people love to play with Eldar and people stop complaining about Eldar.
When was that exactly, sir?
So the situation when that happens is when the Eldar player has to do 101 mental gymnastic tricks, use every single unit absolutely perfectly, and win by 1 point. This is peak Eldar, and I think we are in peak Eldar now, where I think people won't prepare their armies to deal with Eldar. I think people will stop complaining about Eldar, and Eldar will not be winning loads of things at the moment. But I think Eldar players can still be happy at the moment because we have a number of different builds which are viable competitively here, and they haven't been solved at the moment. But I'm seeing glimmers of genius shine through on our Discord, on some of the other channels on the internet, as people come up with these war host builds, Guardian battle host builds. They try and refine their Seer Council builds. I hear the question being asked, like, can we make a Windrider host build that works against all these big things?
Because that didn't actually get nerfed, Windrider, actually.
Exactly. So I mean, Eldar in general, most of the lists are going to take some points increases. But because Ynnari was so powerful, I think we didn't look deep enough into the Eldar Codex. And the key strength with Eldar is it allows you to express your player skill to an extremely high level. Even if you only have a little bit of every tool and your units are not as versatile as units are in other armies, if you use each unit in the correct place, it does actually add up quite a lot in quite a weird and surprising way. I played against Warhost on the weekend with my Thousand Sons, and I felt like I had a massive list advantage. Turn one, I even removed his entire Dark Reaper brick and the only Howling Banshee unit he had. And even with that, the game went right down to the line at the end because every other interaction that happened in the game, my opponent managed to play it perfectly. So I saw that and I got quite inspired, so I started doing some more research. And I actually think Eldar overall are in a decent place. I think they still flat out are a little weaker than almost every single A-tier army. But that's not to say that you can't win against them for any Eldar players out there. I think you can keep improving so that you have a consistent ability to play against these armies, even if you're on the back foot by a little bit. But overall, I think my ranking has to be B tier here for Eldar. And I really think they're on a similar level to Tau and Drukhari now. Eldar, there's not really that much that they can say they're way better. You don't get too much stuff on the board, honestly.
After a beautiful synopsis like that, as much as I would love to, I'm not going to argue against it. What do you think is the go-to build now then If you were going to try and innovate within a detachment, Vic, what would you spend most of your time on?
Yeah, this is a really interesting one because I think I underrated Warhost just a little bit, but
Remind me, which is Warhost again?
Warhost is the index detachment where everything can move a little bit faster with the tokens, and you get more tokens, and you also have Fire and Fade. You can do some really nice shenanigans with primary denial very cheaply in that list, which I think is quite strong. But I think it's probably between Guardian Battlehost and Seer Council of which one is going to be slightly better. And my opinion at the moment, I'm trying to work out a Guardian Battlehost list that actually plays into this meta correctly. But it's very hard to do that with indirect fire from Death Guard and having to deal with melee at the same time because your Howling Banshees can't exist. So I think it's going to be between Seer Council, and which is the one with loads of command points, and Guardian Battlehost, which is the one with the regenning Guardians. And they have the best stratagem ever, which is an auto 6 advance, and you can advance shoot charge for 1 CP with a Storm Guardian unit.
The Guardian Battlehost has a lot of power behind it. I played against Venga Dave from our Discord last week, actually, when he was playing as Guardian Battlehost, and he had the 3 bricks of Guardian Battlehosts and one with Eldred, and man, those things do a lot of damage. He even had a D cannon in one, like 2 of them. Like,
these cannons.
Yeah,
that's a proper Fireside Eldar Discord signature there.
Oh my word! They're like -2 to charge, and they can get pistol and everything like that. And Overwatch on 4s, and I was like, "What is going on?"
You know, if there's any Eldar players that want to get involved with this discussion, the Eldar Discord is so funny. It's so funny. It's actually really good. It's very
the guard chat's just like all vibes, you know, like and then the Eldar chat's like, wow, you're a Guardian Battlehost player, but well, good sir, I can't talk with you because you're a Windhost Rider player. And,
No, it's glorious. So many good ideas there. So yeah, Eldar, I think we haven't seen the best of Eldar yet in this particular patch. I don't think people should be down, but I think they are a B tier army, and if you can get success with them, you are big brains for B tier.
Ooh, B tier for big brains. Nice. Righty ho. Why don't we go with your old Deathwatch here? Now, I saw a tier list earlier that had Ultramarines lower than Deathwatch. Now, I don't know exactly what intersection of the player base plays both Deathwatch and Ultramarines, but I guarantee you it was not the people that made that. Because, Vic, I do play both of those, and I will tell you, Deathwatch is not a great army. Okay, I'm not trying to throw too much shade here, but Deathwatch is pretty good if your opponent doesn't realize your army has 0 access to fallback and shoot and relies almost entirely on playing from deep strike. So if you're, say, playing against, I don't know, Emperor's Children or even Eldar, something that can literally just tag any of your squads, your entire army shuts down. Not to mention the fact that I was kind of going into this disillusion that when I started playing Deathwatch again, that this army does like infinite amounts of damage. Not really. Like this army does like pretty mediocre amounts of damage, and actually getting into the hard stuff because you're basically a 9-inch deep strike army is actually pretty tough. You know, I was playing Centurion Devastators on GW terrain. Like I was trying to play it for a team event. I played on UKTC. I played on WTC. It's a tough cookie to make work, man. I think it's definitely better than Drukhari, man. And I don't think it's better than Tau, if I'm being honest with you. So it's somewhere in the B tier here. Because I've played Ultramarines past the nerf here. And man, the power level, it's just 2 different power levels, guys. Like, Deathwatch, you don't get really that much access to board pressure. But guess what? With Ultramarines Gladius, you're still playing Ballistus Dreadnoughts. You still have an excellent game plan. Even if you play the exact same list and you just down 10 CP, that is miles better than Deathwatch. You're actually forcing your opponent to have answer questions. But with Deathwatch, if you play against a player that's not really familiar with your army, doesn't really think about their movement, then yeah, you can turn up and up be downy something and maybe smoke them off the board, maybe roll another 9-inch charge. But against a really good player, or even just a solid player, you're going to be at the whims of what they can do, in my opinion. Very unforgiving army, in my opinion.
Sure, okay. But still in B tier? Okay, yeah, nice. They're on par with those armies.
They could be buffed, if I'm being honest with you. That, like, you know what's strange about Deathwatch? Oh god, I'm going to complain about them now.
Here we go, let's do it. This is what people sign up for.
So Deathwatch have 1 detachment, which is like the Black Spear Task Force or whatever like that. I'm pretty sure they do. either that or the other one's completely irrelevant. And they have a thing called mission tactics, Vic, which you get either sustained, lethal, or precision army-wide once per turn, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But that only applies to Deathwatch units. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it wouldn't be much to ask to just get that on Adeptus Custodes units, right? Maybe like Gladius Task Force, that applies to your whole army, or Stormlance, for example, or even like Ironstorm, for example. So yeah, that's a huge hampering.
That's a fair point.
They get to uppy downy things, but I mean, okay, that is definitely a strong ability, but there are other, they have no like real combat threats. Their models are like pretty expensive, like these Indomita kill teams you're playing. Guess how much an Indomita kill team and the Gravis captain is, Vic?
400.
It's pretty close to 400, yeah. If you put an enhancement on there, you can almost push it to 400.
Right.
Be'lakor is literally cheaper than that and does way more than that. And Scarbrand is way cheaper than all of that. So yeah, it's tough. Like a 400, I think it's like roughly 200, 360, 370 points unit that can get locked down by a Rhino.
I think you probably feel in a very similar way to how Guardian Battle Host feels, because that is the issue. Your bricks are kind of 300 points plus.
Yeah.
And they can get tagged up. Then you can't regen the models if you're in engagement range and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
I think that this is always the case with big bricks of stuff that actually doesn't heal itself very well. So yeah.
And you're just playing a giant Gravis army. Like, I mean, it's not like a bloat drone turns up and kills 5 guys of your Indomitus kill team in one activation.
Like, you really feel that.
Yeah, like, oh, awesome. Yeah. So, yep, Deathwatch. I mean, honestly.
No, C tier, top of C tier. I mean, you're letting me have Drukhari and B tier, which I love.
They're not a C tier army, but they could be buffed, if you know what I mean.
Sure.
Like,
Yeah.
Okay. What's up next? Why don't we go with your Chaos Knights?
Oh, CK with the new codex. Have you looked at anything with the new codex?
I haven't looked at anything.
I have looked through the new codex and read the rules. And I've had a little look and had a chat with some people.
Okay.
Now,
what's the vibe?
The vibe is, I think that on first glance, the codex looks weaker. Because the actual rules are a little weaker than before.
Okay.
But I think it's deceptive because if you look at the list that people are building, they have 3 abominants, 3 big knights, and then they have 7 little knights with it.
What?
And this is a lot, Dave, I think.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot if the points go down with it. And the abominants just do 1 million mortal wounds. Battle shocks are awful on -2. I actually think this is going to be an extremely strong army.
Sleeper pick.
I think this is going to be very, very strong, and I think it's going to be near the top of the meta, and people are going to have to build their list for it here. So personally, I would put them near the top of A tier here. They're definitely an A tier army.
Wow,
CK.
okay.
And
let's put it right here.
Yeah, right in the middle.
Adjust it afterwards. Nice.
Yeah.
That is spicy, man.
Yeah,
wow.
CK. I think CK look really good.
Dude, I really wanted to paint some knights, actually. You're going to hate this, but I reckon painting some knights would be really fun.
Oh, dude, I don't know about fun. You remember what I said about looking in the mirror if you are painting so many knights? I mean, I would say this again, guys. Just take a second just to consider. Like, is this cool what I'm doing here? And I've had moments where I've done uncool things. Like I put 3 Land Raider Redeemers on a board. But is that better or worse than putting 14 War Dogs on the board? Just think about it. But no, actually, 3 big knights and 7 war dogs actually would be kind of cool. CK has a lot of room for good hobbying, so yeah. Fair.
Big knights are pretty cool, man. That's pretty cool. I'm glad they went in that direction finally.
I'm actually really disappointed. I was hoping they would weaken the rules and keep the points the same. Because do you need knights to be good? Why do they need to be good?
The only thing I mean there is I like that big knights are good. Like, as opposed to just 15 war dogs,
But then I did watch a game of 14 war dogs leave T-Suns on 5 points at the end of the game. So they were tabled by round 3. So, I have a feeling this codex is going to be really, really strong.
Spicy. Nice. Speaking of strong codexes, what about Adeptus Sororitas?
Speaking of strong code, Dave, why would you do this to me? Okay, so Sisters got a lot, and I'm actually super excited about Sisters. I've started chatting with people about it, building a few Champions of Faith lists, and then contrasting them with Hallowed Martyrs lists and Bringers of Flame lists. And I think all three can work really nicely. I watched a game yesterday on Tactical Tortoise TV of Tyranids versus Hull Spam Bringers of Flameless.
Cool.
And the Hull Spam Bringers of Flameless, did really well there. So I think there's a lot of play with kind of immolators with a little bit of stuff in it, castigators, your Paragon Warsuit unit, and your Celestian Sacrosanct units. All of these things got buffs. So the good stuff you want to take all got a little bit better with Sisters. And when you add it all up together and look at what's in the rest of the meta, I do think that Sisters still don't quite do enough or have enough to deal with the very top of the meta. I think they are very much like Eldar in the sense that, they can do all these cool gymnastics, they've got all their stuff, but they're actually just a little weak. But I think, if you use your Sisters correctly, I think they're actually a solid army. And I would argue that they're a little bit better than Eldar, personally, in this meta. I think Paragon Warsuits line up really nicely in this meta. I think Celestian Sacrosancts line up really nicely in this meta. As long as you just pretend that Death Guard don't exist, I think Sisters actually are in a pretty solid place into basically the entire rest of the meta here.
Really? Like top of B tier?
I think top of B tier. I think they're better than Eldar. Eldar, I think, lose to stuff in the B tier.
So Vic, if you were going to go to a tournament and you had to pick between Eldar, LGT September, and you had to pick between Eldar and Sisters, you would go with Sisters?
Okay, so if I wanted to go 4-1 at a tournament, which one am I going to do?
No. Let's say you wanted to win LGT. You would go Sisters or Eldar?
No, I think I'd probably not play either of them. But if I had to choose one, I think I'd probably go Eldar. And the reason for that is if I get really lucky with my run, I feel like I'd have a better chance into the very best players with Eldar.
Okay.
But I think I'll have much more consistency to go 4-1 with Sisters than Eldar. I think Eldar, there's every chance I go. 3-2 is probably almost a baseline, even with all this experience. With Eldar, I think you can just straight up randomly lose games. But Sisters have enough stuff that I think you don't randomly lose games if you have solid macro strategy.
Jeez. Wow.
They're a more consistent army than Eldar, in my opinion.
So I feel like Sisters have jumped out of the dumpster tier,
They have. Yeah, they got a lot of
crazy.
buffs, to be fair.
Really, the buffs were that big?
Yeah, I think they got, almost 80 points extra, and also Champions of Fate means you don't have to discard Miracle Dice. You just pick 3 units to become Righteous. That's enough to get them.
That's a big one.
Yeah, enough to get them up into a good place here. There's some
that was for the Hallowed Martyrs detachment, was it?
No, it's the Christmas detachment, the Grotmas detachment.
Oh, the Christmas detachment. Yeah.
It gives you +1 to move and has a good suite of stratagems and stuff.
Okay, so that Christmas detachment is pretty good, is it?
Yeah, I think that's the one to go to because it gives Sacrosancts OC2 as well. So
man, ho ho ho! Wow. Sisters coming down the chimney, baby.
Yeah.
Damn, that's crazy. What the hell?
Yeah, I was not expecting that. Sisters are solid, man. They are really solid.
Nice, cool. Let's just put Death Guard in S tier and get it over with.
Yeah,
I don't think there's much discussion here, right?
Well, how busted do you think they are? That's a discussion point. Are they like super busted, or are they just busted?
A lot to touch on here. Like, the times that I've played against them, what's really frustrating is that you can have a 6-inch deep strike just attached to a data sheet and not a detachment, if you know what I mean. Because usually when you have a 6-inch deep strike, it's usually like a pseudo build around and comes at the cost of a detachment, right? Now, when that's just attached to a data sheet, you can sub in and play that data sheet wherever, right? So that for me is quite frustrating, and I think a lot of players find that frustrating. I mean, Fiated bloat drones are like literally just off the charts in terms of their efficiency. Like, their models are tiny as well, and they move really well around the board. There's like multiple different builds. I think you could almost play like 4 detachments in Death Guard and it be still better. Like a bad Death Guard detachment is probably still better than almost all of the A tier armies, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
That's how strong they are, because you're not actually like, the detachment rule is obviously very good, especially for like Index, for example, right? But the data sheets behind that are just still insanely strong, right? Like Death Shroud Terminators, it's super easy at a 6-inch. You have to play around it consistently like the entire game. Bloat drones are insanely good. Haulers are good. Even just Plague Marines, like Toughness 6, are really strong. Fight First can prevent you from advancing with a 9. I mean, really, really powerful. I mean, like if this army goes first, it's so suffocating because you don't actually get on the board. And like the thing about Death Guard is usually they're really slow, right? And in these games which they go first, which is obviously 50% of the time, their army doesn't feel slow at all, which is kind of worrying, right?
No, they're fast enough.
Yeah.
But the slowness doesn't compensate for the amount of strength they have in output and durability. And yeah, the output is the problem. The output is too
crazy.
high from shooting and melee here.
The first time you play against one of these Plague Marine bricks, and you're like, no way it's going to kill my -1 to wound, toughness 10 Mutalith Beast, and it like easily kills it. And you're like, what? And then it multi-charges 3 units and kills 3 units. You're like, wait, what?
Yeah, the output's insanity. It is. Yeah.
The output is crazy. Yeah, it's, you know, it should take quite a lot of points. I don't mind the 6-inch deep strike, but like if you have so much stuff that can like a blight hauler, right? Like a blight hauler shouldn't be able to like go around to your expansion objective, shoot onto it with like 0 or like with 90-point investment, like kill a unit off and then out OC your objective, right? Like no.
Yeah, you know what? I think the 6-inch deep strike is a problem. Even if that isn't like necessarily the strongest thing in there, it gives the illusion of very high speed because they're able to interact with every part of the board. Between that and Plague Burst Crawlers, still, I hate when indirect are good and indirect being good. You feel like you can't hide from Death Guard, whereas Death Guard actually should be the army. Okay, when they get to grips with you, they're great. They have to do all these combos to really get to grips with you as well. That's really cool. But when they can just access you anywhere, and if you try and engage with them, their output is so horrendous they win any stat check. Then we have a little bit of a problem unless they have a lot less stuff.
And they're really tanky as well, right? And like a lot of their damages in their characters, and a lot of their damages in their characters that have good shooting weapons. So their rhinos are just insane as well. Yeah. Because even if you get tagged, you fall back into your rhino and it can still activate.
Now, are we really saying tough. is this actually one where they need plus 10%? Like, are they a plus 200 point army from what's being taken at the moment, or is that too much?
I mean, yeah, it feels like this is a great example of how mature GW will become by not triple nerfing it into B tier, you know? Because there's really a few very obviously problematic units, right? Like, I think Poxwalkers are probably a bit too cheap. When my Death Guard opponent just infiltrates 20 Poxwalkers in front of my line and says, if I don't even go first, you know, it's not a big deal. I've got so much stuff. I'm like, you know, there's probably something wrong with that. Or like, if they're like, I'm going to play aggressive with my Feared Bloat Drone, and just even if I deal 6 damage, I'm still trading up to long run because I've got so much stuff, right? Or you've had to extend one thing and now I've got 6-inch deep strike against you, right? So it really needs to be on a couple of key units. You know, I don't mind having the 6-inch deep strike, but you shouldn't be able to infiltrate across the board, jail me, hold your backfield, be on 2 objectives, have long range shooting. Like, you shouldn't be able to do everything here. And Death Guard does everything at the moment. And has no clear weakness. So I'm not an expert on how the detachment strats intricately function, but yeah, I mean, it's going to need like a significant amount of points. I would say at least like 120 to 130.
Oh yeah, so it's on the higher end of a nerf here. Yeah. I mean, playing a singles tournament on the weekend and seeing that, you know, I would not want to have played Death Guard at all, and I can't think of an army that I would use at a UKTC event that I would want to play against Death Guard. So tough, and that's with me playing Thousand Suns, so it's tough. Yeah.
Yep. I mean, they could obliterate Manius Calgar's unit, like not even a problem, you know. Okay, great. Okay, speaking of Manius Calgar, Ultramarines.
Okay, some like up down, you know, few points, but it took a big rules change.
Yeah, you know what, Vic? You know what's still a good game plan? Just like AOC, Ballistus Dreadnought, Advance and Shoot, Storm of Fire. Like, that's still really good, by the way.
I think it's super overrated how much, you know, I know people are saying, look, they lost 10 CP or whatever.
Yeah.
But they still have CP. It's like they still have more CP than most armies do. And they haven't lost material. That's the massive thing.
Yeah. Like, before the balanced data slate, I would have said that this is in my top 3 strongest armies, definitely. After playing them, and I've played at Gladius quite a lot at this point, and just for compensation, when I played Gladius, I felt that it was stronger than Guard. Just between us.
Mhm.
Now, whether that's true or not, whatever, right? But the army felt insanely strong, and you can't tell me that a points decrease and a super flexible detachment that has a massive range of data sheets is not an A tier army, in my opinion. I mean, I don't see. I don't know about Chaos Knights, but I'm tempted to keep them like up in here, in my
Yeah,
opinion. I mean,
fair.
Josh Roberts, just on the weekend. I know they're not playing the new points, right?
No,
For Bristol,
no. He was using Stormlance.
and he was using Stormlance. I mean,
Ultramarines, yeah.
Stormlance didn't get changed that much, right?
Mhm.
He wasn't playing Gilliman, right? So
Mhm.
Storm Raven still perfectly played. Like, it didn't change. You're still playing Manius in there,
Mhm.
so it's hard to see them not being an A tier army. I mean, if I was thinking about Ultramarines or like Demons, like
Mhm.
Ultramarines in my head still significantly better than Demons, and they've got everything to tick against a meta, right? Like,
Mhm.
okay, you've got Malefic Blighthaulers. Well, okay, Ballistic Dreadnoughts, I can actually somewhat play a game into that, right?
Mhm.
OC4, you've got a great game plan against shooting armies, against combat armies, and we've got Space Wolves here, but I'm going to talk about them in a bit too because I'm even a little bit higher on Space Wolves if I'm being honest.
Oh, spicy.
Yeah. Okay, that's it for me.
Yeah.
What about let's let you chat about something for a while, Vic. What about
Okay.
Thousand Suns? What do we jump into?
Thousand Suns. Now, this is an interesting one. You know what? Let's come back to Thousand Suns. Let's
Okay,
do Emperor's
sure.
Children before we
You
do
always
Thousand
cheat.
Suns.
Go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, because Emperor's Children is, I feel, you know, Emperor's Children are a really interesting one because they're outright so strong. I think if you are slightly better than your opponent at the game, you're more experienced than your opponent. I feel like Emperor's Children can win against absolutely everything.
Mm-hmm.
But in the same vein, there are two other situations here. One where your opponent is slightly better than you, and I think Emperor's Children struggle at that point.
Okay.
And the other one is where you're equal player skill. Let's do the discussion based on that.
Sure.
I think there are a set of armies now which Emperor's Children don't have the upper hand against with a normal macro strategy game plan. You need a number of things to go your way for it to work. And the big issue is any kind of significant stat check, especially a high toughness stat check. I think Emperor's Children can run out of steam now. They only took 100 points, which is actually but they took 100 points, which is essentially one less of their little basic marine units. But otherwise, they're essentially the same kind of army. Same. You're taking the same units. You're not
I mean,
really
100
pivoting.
points is a pretty fair chunk, in my opinion. Like, that's 5%.
Yeah, but because you can't side grade because the army is so
Yeah.
small, it's essentially
You feel
the exact same army but minus one unit.
So, just for
Uh,
clarification, would you have had them in S tier previously?
I even then I thought that they lose to high toughness skews personally.
Okay.
Like
You are.
I'm
That's
the only
definitely
one
the
who's saying
minority
that.
opinion, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Okay.
know,
Cool.
I know.
Everyone else thought that they were basically the best army in the game.
Yeah, yeah.
S tier, whatever, right? Okay. Cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
continue.
I am the minority in this opinion. I'm probably still the minority in this one. I think a lot of people would still put Emperor's Children in the S tier, but I
Okay.
personally think Emperor's Children lose to a bunch of stuff. If they hit transport based melee, which is what they are, I think it's an absolute 50-50 game. And I think, for example, CSM is going to be better than them. I think if they hit a better melee army, they hit Blood Angels. I think the advantage is in Blood Angels' side. If they hit hugely high toughness, like Imperial Knights, Chaos, especially new Chaos Knights, I think they're going to struggle. And if they hit extreme high output, like Thousand Suns and Death Guard, I think it's in favor of Thousand Suns and Death Guard in certain terrain formats here.
Okay.
I think in Death Guard, in all formats, they have the advantage against Emperor's Children, personally.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't think Emperor's Children are an S tier army. I think
Sure.
they're an A tier army,
Okay.
and they're a good A tier army who has bad matchups. They do lose games,
Mhm.
which is a little different to some of the other A tier armies here, because I think the other A tier armies kind of play roughly the same into everything. Like Ultramarines Gladius has a matchup into most stuff. So
Yep.
does the new Chaos Knights Codex, so does Chaos Demons, and so does other armies that we're going to talk about in A tier. So I think Emperor's Children personally they sit in A tier, and I don't exactly know how high up they should be.
I feel like they're pretty high up in A tier. Let's put them here for the time being and see where the rest of it lands. Because why don't we jump into Blood Angels?
Yeah.
So I would like to just put Blood Angels in S tier.
I think Blood Angels are an outright better melee army. than
Yes.
Emperor's Children, just because of material, not because of rules necessarily. But even the rules.
The rules in Blood Angels is still just really good.
And the Emperor's Children Infractor plus Lord Exultant unit is able to do output into any target. But you have 3 of those units. Blood Angels has so many more hammer units in their army. So many more.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if 3 Sangard does as much damage as Infractor and Lord Exultant.
No, but 5 Death Company do. This is the point.
Yeah, but they can't fall back in charge and stuff like that.
Okay,
Noise
correct.
And Noise Marines are way better because they have shooting and
army rule,
like
but
that,
look at the
But-
points difference in these things. It's significant.
Yeah.
So I personally think Emperor's Children are being massively overrated in terms of being one of the best armies in the game. I think they're just a very good army. I don't even think they're necessarily better than a bunch of stuff, man. I think people are really overhyping Emperor's Children.
Okay.
I
I still think they're better than every other AT army we've got currently.
You guys are all wrong. You're massively overrating that army.
Blood Angels, I have no idea why the points went down. I don't think anyone has an idea why the points went down.
It's not just a little down. It's seriously down.
Well,
it's severe. So
yeah, and in fact, every list that so actually, Liam and I did a segment during the combat masterclass where he was playing Blood Angels, and I did happen to notice that almost every unit he played was one that went down, so, even including some of the characters. So
honestly,
that's an interesting one.
I think the points decreases on the Blood Angels units is correct, but it has to be compensated by increases on the actual Space Marine units that were taken in Blood Angels. So there should have been increases in JPIs and Blade Guard to compensate for decreases in Sangard and Death Company, in my opinion.
No way. JPIs are way worse in every other detachment. I'm not going to lie. I'm not even going to play JPIs in Gladius, for example. Like, they're actually not a good unit there. The fundamental problem is that in Blood Angels, these units become actual powerhouses. And they hit so many breakpoints that is like actually very, very important. Like going from strength 4 to 6 means that you wound any vehicle on basically 5s, right? Going from 8 to 10 on the Power Fist means that you wound vehicles on like 4s, for example, right? So like their detachment rule is what really enables a lot of these core units. And I think that the detachment rule should be toned down to even +1 strength would be quite a big tone down. And that's a little bit of a side thing there. But I really don't think the Blood Angel stuff should have gotten cheaper. I mean, the Blood Angel stuff was already like good. Like lots of people were playing Dante, Sanguinary Guard. I mean, Death Company, okay, weren't as popular. But now every list has them, right? So yeah, it's tough. I mean, like genuinely, a lot of this a lot of the stuff that looks insane in Blood Angels like doesn't get played in any other detachment. Like Blade Guard, no one's playing that in Gladius or Ultramarines or whatever. JPIs, I played at New York and like I would change them out after my list, right? I'm not playing them in Space Wolves, for example. So it really is the detachment that's the problem. And the fact that it's a tough thing to balance because a lot of units are a lot better in Blood Angels. And we had a viewer question on do we need to put separate points on stuff like JPIs and scouts and Blood Angels because they are all like the captain, right? Assault intercessors, like do they need to be more expensive than Blood Angels because they're kind of like entirely different units. Like +1 attack, +2 strength is a massive difference maker for all these things. So it's a tough one to balance there, but I mean, Blood Angels were already they're an A-tier army anyway. So
that's the issue, isn't it? They were already a very, very top-end army.
Yeah, it's I don't know. Yeah. One of the only things that gives me respite is that surely Death Guard are really good into Blood Angels, and that just goes to show you. Well, I mean, these Plague Marine builds are pretty good, man. Like they have multiple fights first. You can't end in advance with a 9.
I don't think people are building the fight first, are they? Into their list, they now.
At least play 1. I mean, you would definitely now, and you would definitely play the cannot end in advance with a 9 character as well. But
honestly, I think there's enough units in these Blood Angels lists that you just tag 2 ends of a fight first brick.
No. I mean, if you castle up correctly, you're never going to be able to do that, right? Like, if you castle up correctly with your
fights
first brick,
one unit.
Yeah, okay,
I see it.
Like, if you play good, you're not going to get tagged like that, in my opinion. And you're going to like castle your heroic combat squad like near their expansion out of a rhino with another unit in a rhino and a chaff unit or like poxwalkers around it so that they can't ever do that, and they're in a tough position after that, I think. But I mean, at the same time, you can still just walk around a corner and pressure them with a bloat drone or plague burst crawler continuously, right? Yeah, okay. That's enough of Blood Angel. That is, we don't disagree at all. That is the top of the meta right now.
Yeah.
That is a winner. Okay. What about Chaos Space Marines, Vic? What do you think about them?
They are they're the 1-2 to the left there, aren't they?
Oh, yeah, sorry. I get them confused with
Chaos Space Marines. I think Chaos Space Marines are a bit of a sleeper pick. They're kind of like the CSM, the Chaos Drukhari, in my opinion. I think they're still going under the radar a little bit. I think Renegade Raiders is still super strong. I think Bile is still solid. I think Renegade Raiders has the better singles matrix.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I was just going to say Veterans of the Long War as well is still really solid.
Veterans of the Long War is only good if you're Liam VSL, in my opinion. I don't understand how he gets so much out of that. It just is so hard to play correctly. But Renegade Raiders is very obviously powerful here. Noise Marines got 10 points, which is not a lot. Okay. And maybe we see some tech with some Lord Discordants, Vashtor.
Yeah, Lord Discordant. Yeah,
man. I think it's just a solid army because actually the stuff that the meta doesn't like dealing with is decent melee out of rhinos. And CSM have this advantage of actually having good predators to shoot from behind. Which is good into a lot of stuff. Look, we've got Space Marines all the way along the top of that list. So I personally think CSM are a solid A tier army still.
I feel like Knights we've got to bump down to B tier.
Imperial Knights. Oh my god, yeah. Forget the stats.
Because forget the stats, man. You know what? If your opponent and I think a lot of people that go 4-1 with Knights is just like, well, my opponent had like 2 Lancers or something, and you're just like, eh. If Blood Angels and Death Guard are popular, how are Knights going to be good, right?
I hate that we have Knights next to Balanced. So
do you feel like CSM? I feel like CSM and the right hands are better than Demons, but do you think they're better than New Chaos Knights? It's tough. Obviously, we haven't seen.
I think New Chaos Knights are very, very good. Personally.
Oh, you think they're very good?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm happy to put them in front of Ultramarines.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think they're almost good enough to be a problem.
Wow.
Coming here. Yeah, but we'll see. I need a little bit more evidence before I confirm that hot take.
Okay. How good do you think Guard are, Vic?
I think Guard are a low A tier army here.
Okay. You know what? I could even, honestly, I could see them in the top of B tier, if I'm being completely honest.
So tell me this, Dave.
Sure.
Did you not say that Guard are the best singles army? Mechanized Assault is the best singles army in the game.
Yeah, I said that, and I didn't. I thought the Ynnari matchup was a little bit better than what it was, and it turns out that matchup is bad. Now Ynnari is nerfed, of course, that's good. But let me tell you, Death Guard that was before Death Guard was out, and Death Guard is not a great matchup. Now, here's the problem, Vic, is that if I go out and say Mechanized is an extremely good build, I will be the only one playing that in the build. For some reason, I've been saying this for months. And, Guard community... so the other day, I was talking with Morden Glory, Tim. And Tim said... this was after the balanced data slate. And Tim said, man, the Guard community... He described it beautifully. He said, the Guard community... It's kind of like a vibes community, man. So even though Guard got nerfed a lot, he said, Guard got nerfed a lot, but he said, I think overall the community is going to be happy because they get to order their super heavies. Like Bulgrin went down a little bit, and I thought, you know what? I've never thought about it like that, but that is completely true. There's like 5 Guard players that are super annoyed at the points changes because they're like pretty substantial nerfs. And the whole other Guard community is like, fuck yeah, I get to order my super heavies, like put my Bulgrim back on the table, like, you know what I mean? So it's a tough relationship, man.
It's a tough one because if we look at it as let's say you're playing against yourself and you turn up at a tournament and Dave's there with his Mechanized Assault. You've got your CSM army. How are you feeling?
I've got my CSM army, and they have maybe a new Lord Discordant and stuff like that.
Mate, no Lord Discordant. We're going proper old school
Renegade
Raiders. You got Noise Marines. You got your Chosen.
Probably like 45-55 to me, probably.
It's
just honestly, it's just a mix. It's a 50-50 game,
If you're playing Emperor's Children, I feel like you would much rather have the Mechanized Assault there.
So against Emperor's Children, I would rather have the Mechanized Assault, right? But that's because my list genuinely lines up quite well against that. But honestly, against Imperial Knights and Chaos Knights, that's a straight up game, you know? Like, that's
yep.
actually not a favorable game, and I'd usually win all those games because I'm obviously the only mechanized player basically in the world. So, like, I need to cook a lot there, right? But, like, man, if I played the new Blood Angels, I don't even think, even though my list had, like, quite a bit of anti-combat in it, I don't even think I could out-attrition an army like Blood Angels.
Okay. This is the point where God do drop off from the top of the game for me, because up to this point, I've always felt God has had the winning matchup against the top of the meta, except for one, like a blip, like more Daka blip. This is the first
Definitely
time.
not Ynnari, though, I don't feel like, but Ynnari was a pretty tough one, man.
I feel you'd do better if you played it again, by the way.
Yeah, for sure, yeah. But,
I think that's a proper 50-50 game, personally, at top level.
It does depend on, obviously, what build you're playing. If you've got 40 Krieg, that's like a different build. I completely admit that. But I will tell you now, Vic, Guard is not good. Even before the points, is not a great army on WTC terrain.
This is huge.
I'm not even joking you. Like, I would rather play... I would almost rather play Deathwatch than Guard on WTC. You know?
Yeah.
Like, unless I was playing mechanized, like the combined arms, which most people played, is not a great army on WTC, which is a pretty big point to make, I think. It's just the way that how close the ruins are and stuff. Like, you run into a combat army, you're just like, well, all right.
Yeah, no, this is huge. The point you're making here about some armies are just completely different on different terrain formats.
Yeah.
And God have a lot of strength on UKTC format. They have during this entire period, haven't they?
And it just goes to happen to be that the most prevalent Guard players are in England. I think that's just like a fair statement, right? Like me, Nassim, we had Gustavo in our Discord as well recently. That's been the historical kind of that's been the big brain center for like Guard for like a number of years now, actually. And on GW terrain, Guard they're not as good as UKTC as well.
But still
to
solid.
Be completely honest, they're much better than WTC. But like, you play like a layout one, which is the one where you have two ruins, like diagonal like arrows that face each other. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that one, but man, like a combat army that goes first on that one, they stage in there like poof, tough. Knights, like you're playing a lot of knights there, right? Tough as well. So
maybe if we look at it overall, that is probably where Guard should be, towards the bottom of A tier then.
Yeah. Well, I think there's going to be A tier armies that will definitely be better. So I think if you didn't play mechanized before, man, oh my word! Like, my list went up. Actually, my list didn't go up too many points, so that's kind of nice. Went up 20 on Creed, 10 on the Orks, I think, and you can like side grade a little bit, so you're kind of playing down like 20 to 30 points, which isn't like insignificant, obviously, but a couple of key pieces didn't go up, like the Drogodorn Tank Commander, like Vanquishers didn't go up. So that is the build that you want to play if you really want to push into the meta. Like, so yeah, it's a tough one, man. I think honestly, like, I know a lot of long-time Guard players have sent me photos of like painting up other armies, for example. Like, this might be, I think the win rate's going to plateau off the cliff, man, because the win rate was one of the lowest in the entire game, just for record, right? And it won 2 events over the past like 4 months, one of which was me and one of which was Gustavo. So it's a bit of a strange one, but I totally get your point in that the community behind it is, it's not the Drukhari community, right? So the stats are almost completely irrelevant there. Yeah, I could honestly see them being like
top of B kind of.
Guard is balanced, right? Like, I don't know. Like, you're playing mechanized assault, like you're doing a lot to make it work, Like, you got to combine like your transports, like scout move, like move block stuff, like combine 3 units into killing like a big target. You know what I mean? Like, you're not rolling over anyone with damage. You know what I mean? Like, I played Death Guard. Like, I got like tabled by the end of the game. I was like slogging through that like every single turn, right? Yeah. So maybe don't play mechanized if you got a lot of Death Guard in your group.
Well, everyone's struggling against Death Guard. Death Guard have the positive matchup everywhere, except the next one, which I think we should talk about, which is Thousand Suns, because we brought up 2 really good points here. One is how armies can feel completely different on different terrain formats.
Yeah,
because in my opinion, on WTC terrain, I think Thousand Sons are flat out the best army in the game. I think they're
Yes.
better than Death Guard. I think they're better than Blood Angels, and they have a
Yep.
win into both of those armies.
Yes.
And I think Death Guard is the only army on WTC terrain that can even manage to give Thousand Sons a game.
Yep.
But that is not the case on UKTC and GW terrain. The distances between ruins and the movement pathways for things like Magnus, Mutilith, Vortex, Beast, your Bow Goats is really suboptimal on these terrain formats. And what you'll find is, I'll give you an example. You have a Blood Angels army that you're playing against, which is staged on WTC.
Yeah.
Magnus can see into the ruin that they're staging on with his wing, and your rubrics can move 15 inches and see around the corner into the ruin that they're staging in. So you've been able to activate both of those units into a Blood Angels army. They can't deal with that attrition for more than 2 turns. Their army will be tabled if they take that attrition for 2 or 3 turns. On UKTC, 15 inches gets you to the point where you can't see around the opponent's expansion ruin, and Magnus can see into absolutely nothing. So you're trying to play the game here without having the entire output of Magnus and Rubric Marines, and you've got to play it in a very different way. And the only way the Thousand Sons really push huge wins is where they basically throw out a layer of stuff, Mutilith Vortex Beast, onto objectives, and your opponent has to overcommit into them, and your counterpunch begins the spiral of you winning the game. You can't do that on UKTC, and you can't do that easily on GW, because your Mutiliths absolutely stick out, or on UKTC, they can't actually reach the objectives. In WTC, they can hide and reach the objectives, which is insanity.
Yeah, there's a lot of like small 2 to 3 inch breakpoints, which kind of make a huge difference. Like the terrain makes a huge difference, guys. Like Magnus is like king. Like WTC terrain is Magnus's kingdom. Like he turns up and like bullies people. You know, it's really tough. Obviously, Vic and I both played it at WTC last year as well. On GW, I think Magnus is a lot better than on UKTC as well, though. You know, like
a little better, I think.
Yeah, like I mean, you know, he can see on like through if you're on the terrain, he can really see into it really easily, and it's a lot more angular. It's not perpendicular. All these angles, right?
So I'll say the big issue is that Magnus on UKTC and GW is very exposed when he tries to activate. Whereas in WTC, you can cut out one angle while shooting at something. So you can stay a little bit hidden on WTC. So basically everything leans towards WTC. Now, WTC is not a single format in the majority of the world. It's only really in Europe and kind of 1 or 2 tournaments here in the UK. So I think the singles data is going to represent GW and UKTC terrain mostly. This week was 52%, using some old rules. Things might improve a little bit. But I think T-Suns honestly stick around that 50% mark, even with an extremely skilled player base playing it. But I think they're going to be by far the best army at WTC. I think all of the top player rankings are all going to be T-Suns players this year, in my opinion.
I'm feeling like kind of like this, you know?
I think they're better than Emperor's Children.
Okay. Oh, sure.
Yeah,
cool.
definitely better. I think they're up there at the top of A tier. And I think, you know, overall, the strength of the army is very, very high. They have high output, so they can kind of play into everything. But I think people are just randomly going to lose games left, right, and center, even if you're a brilliant player on non-WTC formats.
I'm going to put all-terrain formats, because on WTC, I feel like they are the best army in the game.
Yeah, they're in their own tier. They should be above.
Yeah. I'll put it like this or something.
The world champion tier.
The world champion tier. They are the world champion army.
They are. 3 years in a row, man. Isn't that crazy?
Awesome. Why don't I go with Tyranids next? Because I've been playing, I've been playing the new detachment, been ordering some models, trying to play it at a GT this month. Been really enjoying it. Super fun. It's got some really cool elements to it. You know what a great question is, Vic? Is would I be better playing Tyranids or Mechanized Assault at a tournament?
Man, that new Tyranid detachment is wild. It's good, isn't it?
It's good, but my only loss was to Liam.
I don't know how Liam managed that. By the way, I need to watch that game again.
Oh, I just missed up my turn too. Yeah, that was.
But I think you can win that game, can't you?
Yes, yeah. I would just have to. Yeah. We talked about it. We had a debrief. Honestly, man, like, I'm thinking top of B tier. If I'm being honest with you.
No, Dave.
Yeah.
Dave, there's going to be internet outrage with that.
Like bottom of A tier, top of B tier is the highest I'm willing to go. To
Dave,
be genuinely honest,
there
with
is
you.
not a single Emperor's Children player who you're ever going to lose to. Look at where they are compared to this army.
Yeah.
You'd already just told me Mechanized Assault is going to beat Emperor's Children. Like, is Emperor's Children in the wrong place, or are these armies in the wrong place? And this is going back around to me saying they're an overrated army.
I think Emperor's Children could definitely beat Tyranids. 100%.
Could.
Yeah.
You need everything to align for that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Liam kind of did destroy me, so that's like a thing, I guess. I think like, Guard might beat Emperor's Children, but I think Emperor's Children crushes like everything else. That's the problem. Like, that's the real problem, is that Emperor's Children almost dumpsters everything else down here, which
I'll give you
it's not
this.
into not even a game.
I think Emperor's Children don't beat Sisters. Yeah. Okay, Sisters players. Reply in the comments about that particular comment I just made, because I'm telling you, Sisters beat Emperor's Children.
Okay, I'm gonna put it at the top of A.
Okay.
Sure. I'm bullied. I've been bullied into it. I would rather I would rather play Tyranids, of course, but that's also because I played like 300 games of Guard. So there's there's that factor into it.
People are saying Tyranids, that new detachment is the best army in the game, but I don't agree.
Okay, those people are smoking crack. Like, that is definitely not true. It has 0 defensive stratagems, like defensively wise. Like, it can pseudo fall back and shoot and teleport for sure. But like, Blood Angels, would they go first? Yeah, that's not a winning game. Death Guard going first. You're not in a winning position there. Like T-Sons and Emperor's Children, if they go first, you're definitely not in a winning position there.
You can leave them in B tier, Dave. I don't want to bully you too much. I think you're probably right.
Yeah. You need to get the engine going. Like, if you get the engine going, you can teleport around heaps and stuff like that. But honestly, it's not a very straightforward detachment to play, if I'm being honest. You really need to get reps with it and like focus on where your tunnels are and everything and what you're going to commit and stuff. And like, the build is not really obvious. That's the interesting thing, because there's lots of cool stuff and good stuff to play. But you're playing a lot of like 200, 250 point units, which can become a bit blocky at some point.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay. What about Necrons?
Oh, yeah. What do you think, Dave?
Why did these guys go down in points?
Only a little bit of it went down in points. Basically, the entire Conoptech court list that was meta right at the start of the Codex drop thing.
It went down 80 points. Yeah, that's like quite a bit. I did play a game with 18 wraiths, and it was quite good. The Challenger card, Challenger cards was definitely a buff for that as well, interestingly enough. Because you can like discard and CP redraw more often. Honestly, 18 wraiths is pretty good, man. I own all those. I own the entire army as well. Is 8?
What is worse to play against? Knights or 18
wraiths? It's not even close, dude.
I think it's
not
close.
Even close.
But I say that 18 wraiths is worse to play against. Like, what's worse to play against? The two top things up there are 20 Necron warriors or 18 wraiths.
Okay, let's put this to the listeners. What's worse to play against, old Ynnari or 18 wraiths? Just answer below.
What a question. Beautiful
Just answer below. Because I certainly know what I hated more, and it wasn't 18 wraiths. Despite playing and losing against them in the semifinals.
That's probably because you are a filthy Necron player at heart.
Honestly, I think they're. Man, are they better than Demons? Honestly, it's really close between these two in my head. It's really close between these three in my head, I think. We saw Star Shadow do really well at Bristol, obviously, but 18 races is going to be good on your terrain format that you play. Like WTC, 18 races, that's an army for sure.
Yeah, we did talk about this. Both Necrons and Blood Angels are A-tier armies that didn't get an A-tier armies balance treatment.
No,
they got treated like they were C-tier armies here, which is weird, but yeah,
it's a bit strange.
Yeah, which it's not correct. Yeah.
It's somewhere in A tier here, I think, it's quite strong. Obviously, it kind of depends, like, does it auto lose to Death Guard or Blood Angels? I don't know. Depending on your Blood Angels build, you might struggle to kill an entire Wraith Brick, and that'll be a huge breakpoint in your army on how you're going to play the game. Okay, next up. Why don't we go to Custodes? You got any opinions on these guys?
Custodes. I actually think Custodes are, people are being too kind to Custodes. I think people think Custodes are better than they are. But I have never seen Custodes win a game. Now that I think back to it, like I've watched people play it on like TTS stuff like that. I've played against it loads of times now, and I have just never seen them actually win games. When you see the army on the table, it's like, oh, there's such a small army; they must be tough. But I'm telling you, like a Death Guard Marine feels stronger for some reason than this. And every Custodes you kill is like, whoa, you just took out an entire unit's worth of points with them.
Yeah.
I think they're a really bad army, personally.
Okay.
Like, there's one detachment which has a really good reactive move. I
Yeah,
know,
the Lions
I know
detachment, yeah.
Lions do when they're shot, but there's one which has a reactive move when you go near them as well.
Okay, yeah.
And I thought that detachment is actually kind of scary to play against.
Okay.
But that's completely dropped off the meta now, and people are still building around 15 Wardens.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the only good build, to be frank. 15 Wardens, 2 Grav Tanks, and then the Dawn Eagle Jetbike Captain with 2 guys, and then 15 Witch Seekers. I played against that last week.
Yeah, I mean, some variation of that. You can have the Caladius tanks as well, Calidus or whatever they're called.
Is it better than Drukhari?
No, I'm thinking it should be in the either D or C tier, personally.
Okay, it's definitely better than Admech. 100%.
No, it's not.
Oh,
Admech is a
100%
better army. Custodes are not good.
No
Like
way,
Admech,
dude.
at least you have mission play for some consistency in singles. Custodes, you just straight up, like, I could see Admech finding a way to play against A tier armies and B tier armies. Custodes, I'm telling you, at any kind of decent player skill level, you could take all of the B tier armies and you'd absolutely smash Custodes, but not necessarily Admech.
Yeah, but they could also beat, like, Blood Angels as well. Like,
No,
they are very, like, the Lions Detachment is very good in inter-combat armies, I'll be honest.
Why? They have no fights first. What?
No, but they have Fight on Death and they have, like, Interrupt, and their units absolutely blend anything as well.
No, they have fight
And they feel no pain. Yeah.
No, Dave. Okay, fine. I think Custodes are a really, really weak army at the moment, but they should not be buffed as well.
We're differing between 2 placements on this one.
Yeah.
I'm happy to put them down there. Okay, what about Genestealer Cults? Do you know anything about this army?
No, just that they're quite good.
Yeah,
we only know vibes. I think we have a few armies that we only know vibes on here, which are the middle 3, and then we could probably be a bit more informed on Space Wolves and Orks.
I think they're pretty good, man. Like, but the reality is, you need to be like an actual GSC player. I don't think they're better than.
I think probably bottom of that A tier.
Yeah. Okay. I'm like kind of thinking when Ennis Wilson plays them. You know what I mean? Like Host of Ascension. Their Matrix at Battle for Salvation Team Tournament was quite good, to say the least. But again, we're talking about one person there, like, or Eric, right? Or I don't know, Myson or something like that. It's a pretty laborious army to play on the admin front.
A good GSC player is terrifying, to be fair.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna caveat this one with has to be a good GSC player.
I'm not sure they're actually stronger than Necrons and Shadow Legion, to be honest. If we're looking at power level,
I'm 100% sure they are. Yeah,
fair. Okay,
I get to use my my veto vote on that one.
You got your veto. All right.
Yeah. Orks. I mean, they took a bit of a nerf, right?
Yeah, I remember we did our last one, and you had the opinion that maybe tactical didn't take that much of a nerf, but I was actually looking at the points.
I said Warhorde was probably the best.
I think Warhorde is the only one.
Yeah, but
it's the only thing left.
But I said I thought Warhorde was maybe better than tactical anyway, so the points weren't actually like against Warhorde, so it's a bit deceptive.
Yeah, I thought tactical was still solid, but it's definitely not solid now. I think Warhorde is still like solid. Is it A tier, B tier? What do you think, Dave?
I definitely think it's better than Guard.
Okay, maybe.
Oh, dude, come on, man.
I don't know. We're just disagreeing with everything at the moment.
I mean, okay. I mean, it kind of depends on your terrain format. Like, obviously, Warhorde is a lot better than Guard on WTC, but maybe Guard is a bit better than Warhorde on UKTC, right? Look, man, you know what? I'll give you this one. You go for it. I'm already happy that Guard's in B tier, so.
I mean, it's fine, I guess. I mean, I'm not sure. Maybe Warhorde should be an A tier army here.
Like that, maybe?
I don't know. It's a hard one. What would Brian do with it? It would obviously be A tier, right?
He would definitely have it in A tier. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is probably fair where they are.
Okay.
All these armies are roughly in the same spot there in B tier.
And, it kind of depends on the terrain format as well there, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
World Eaters. The World Eaters Codex is actually nowhere near as bad as people were talking, to be completely honest. And Liam, who I was chatting with yesterday, was saying that actually the Demonkin detachment, that's where the juice is, man. Like, Scarbrand, 40 Bloodletters, 2 to 3 Forge Fiends, and like some Khorne Berserkers and stuff like that. Like, their strat where you can teleport a Bloodletter unit to a destroyed unit, like an Incarn teleport, is like, that's pretty good, man.
That's very, very strong.
So I think World Eaters players maybe need to experiment a little bit more on that one.
I think people are starting to catch on that World Eaters may actually be quite good here. They're a little underrated coming out of the gates, but vibes-wise, I have a feeling they're a solid A tier army. They're right up there with Emperor's Children and T-Sons, personally.
Are you serious?
I think so. I think they're up there in A tier. I just don't agree with the Emperor's Children, which is throwing me, yeah.
You think they're up there in A tier? Wow.
I think so.
That's crazy. Okay, where did you
so?
think? No, not an A tier personally, but
I
was shocked that you think they're better than Guards, for example. Like, what?
I don't agree with Guard either. I had no decision in that.
You said they were in B tier.
No, I didn't. That's you making up words now.
Okay, wow. You thought they were in A tier. That's a hot take.
I think they're in there in A tier, just right next to those Chaos Demons.
Okay. Wow. How the tides have changed, man. That is spicy. Wow. Okay, Leagues of Votann, who I'm assuming basically didn't get changed in the last balance status.
They got a little buff just to stuff that can go in transports.
Yeah.
Little drones don't count now.
They got a buff. Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I mean,
they've kind of honestly just been balanced all the way through, haven't they? They haven't had a change in ages.
They're pretty balanced. I mean, if you're Tim Schneider, they're going to be a little bit better. Kit was playing them at Battle for Salvation. They were pretty good there as well. I kind of like top of B tier, You don't think so? You think they're a bit higher than that?
No. I don't think they're higher than that. I was thinking they're just kind of in the mix there.
Okay.
I think we need to rejig this B tier.
Yeah, we can rejig.
Something's wrong there, isn't it?
Fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Space Wolves.
Okay.
Dude, if Space Wolves were legal this month at the GT, I would definitely be playing them, man.
Nice.
Oh, baby. These guys are pretty good, man. And I've been loving them, to be honest with you. I've been playing Space Wolves Gladius, cool stuff.
Nice.
The build is really good. I'm loving it, bro. I got like 2 Ballistas, a Repulse Executioner, 2 Iron Priests. I got Bjorn in there. I got Logan Grimnar and 5 Terminators. I got Combi Lieutenant, Gravis Captain. Got Ragnar with Head Takers, 2 Hammer Strikes.
Oh, sounds cool, actually.
Yeah, a lot of cool shooting, a lot of cool combat. 9 Thunderwolf Cavalry. Thunderwolf Cavalry, you're hearing it here right now, are the best skirmishing unit in the game. There we go. 100 points.
100 points for 3.
They definitely should be a little bit more expensive, in my humble opinion. This Chaos Knights is really throwing me off, to be honest with you, because I don't know anything about them. But I definitely think Space Wolves are better than Ultramarines.
Chuck them above Chaos Knights.
Yeah.
Are they better than Emperor's Children?
Yeah, I mean, it totally depends on how you think Emperor's Children line up against everything else. I think the Space Wolves build is it's definitely better than Necrons. It's got good game into Demon. Like, obviously, you're still playing Space Marines, so you can tech against any of these problematic armies. You've got game into Blood Angels, to be honest with you, because you got like a rapid ingress Vect Aura unit that heroics when they come to charge you.
Nice.
You've got like Ballistas Dreadnoughts and reactive move back into transport guys, so you can bring them into the board and start attritioning them. You got Ballistas Dreadnoughts, of course. Thunderwolf Cavalry, solve a counterpunch in out OC situation. Man, I'm pretty high on them, to be honest with you, man.
Nice. Chuck them
like,
up
genuinely.
there. Just chuck them up there, man.
Dude.
Send it.
I think... Okay, the stats won't... Yeah, I think they're one of the better armies in the game, to be honest with you. Genuinely, I think I could play into... I'm not going to say I can like beat Death Guard. I would be favored in Death Guard, but man... Repulse Execution is pretty good at shooting back at blow drones and stuff like that, And the Iron Priests, man. The Iron Priests with the hammer strikes.
Yeah.
Man, they get like +4 shots. The hammer strikes are so brilliant, Vic. They move 14 inches at OC3. In Stormlance, they're even better because you get -1 to hit and wound on them. In Firestorm as well, you can get +1 strength on them, and all their strength 9 melter guns and D6 damage go to strength 10. So it's just like the absolute rhino killer of the century.
Pretty good data sheet power there.
Yeah, and the Iron Priest really tipped them over to that point where they can consistently do a lot of damage whenever you send them in, which is a really nice breakpoint. And Stormlance, I think Stormlance is a brilliant build. We did the masterclass with Chris, of course, and he has like a 10-man Bloodclaw unit with Ragnar. It's like so sick. They can reactive move back into the Storm Raven. Thunderwolf Cavalry, they can reactive move. -1 to hit and wound Storm Raven. Iron Priested Storm Raven.
Nice. Yeah.
Honestly, pretty good, man.
It's a good mix of shooting and and a little bit of combat, isn't it?
Yeah, you know, like I think that genuinely, I think that the Space Wolves Gladius build is just better than the Ultramarines Gladius build. And I still think that build is really good. So that's my hot take on them. And I've played quite a few games with them at this point. I was straight on them. I've played Ironstorm. I've played Stormlance. I've played Gladius a lot, and I've had some games that I've won, some games that I definitely should have won, and to some people that I don't normally win against. So I'll take that as a good sign.
Look at the position of the power armor armies. There's one in B tier, and then the rest of the marine things are all in A and S tier.
Yeah.
Wow.
Why don't we go through a revision, Vic? Because I would love to put some stuff down. You know, it's very easy to put everything in A and B tier. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I feel like Deathwatch is a good example. Okay. I feel like that could be buffed personally.
Yeah. I think I'd keep Drukhari in that B tier. I think they don't need any more from here. Oh my god, I'm gonna get hate for that, aren't I? I think Sisters are higher up in B tier, personally.
Okay, spicy. Maybe in front of Imperial Knights, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think so what's the top of B tier? What are the 3 best armies in B tier?
I think I could definitely see Guard being the top there, right?
Yeah, I agree.
However, I don't see a single metric that is going to support that. But
I think
but they can't have fallen that far, right?
Orks.
Okay.
Warhorde Orks. Nids and then Sisters. I think those are the best. I can and then that. Imperial Knights. And then probably Eldar.
I think Votann are probably better than Knights, to be honest with you.
Interesting. Okay.
Especially on WTC.
Yeah, okay. I see it. That looks pretty tidy, to be honest.
Yeah. Okay. That's looking a bit better.
Yeah, I like the look of that.
Deathwatch, man. Dude, I'm literally painting Deathwatch, like my showcase army. And like, they're just, you know, like, trust me, I'm invested in these guys, you know.
And then on A tier, you know where it says all terrain formats? Can we put WTC equals S?
Yes, yeah.
That'll be clearer.
God tier.
God tier, yeah. Nice.
I'm not sure. Okay, Space Wolves. Would I be not happy to play against anything here? Not really, to be honest with you. I don't know about the new Chaos Knights, but I think Emperor's Children, I could see it maybe something like this, if I'm being completely honest. I could see Emperor's Children like having games into like Death Guard and like Blood Angels, you know, like with the speed and shooting there. And the transports, like I don't play a lot of transports, but at the same time, I think these are really close, to be honest with you. I could put really close under it.
No, I think, yeah.
I
think it's fine how it is. I think at least put them next to the Chaos Knights.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I think this is fine. Yeah, it's up to you where the Space Wolves go. You know that better than me, and you played at EC as well.
I'm liking it. Yeah, I do like them a lot. The question is Ultramarines, I guess. Are CSM a better army than Ultramarines?
I think that's pretty similar, isn't it?
It's very similar, I think. We can leave like a little gap here a little bit, you know?
Add
like a little divider.
I think you could put the Chaos Knights with them as well. I think those are all kind of around the same-ish level, aren't they?
Like these 4 here?
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of like that. We
can I mean, you've somehow got EC way higher than I think it should be. But because I just feel like EC loses to like a chunk of stuff there. But yeah.
You could I'm happy to put it like this.
Yeah.
That sounds cool. Okay, GSC is a bit of a blip. Necrons, Demons. I think Demons are better than Necrons, if I'm being completely honest.
Nice.
On GW and UKTC, and WTC, which I think if you're playing in the USA, I think Demonic Incursion, Shadow Legion, you're gonna have a better time with Demons. I think on average. GSC, we'll just leave that where it is. World Eaters, I'm struggling to believe that they're in A tier, Vic, but
yeah,
okay.
I think it's probably going to end up being the correct place.
Okay.
From the whisperings I've heard.
The whisperings. Deathwatch down here, and GK is probably the worst army in the game currently. Nice, that looks solid. I'm actually really happy with this one, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, pretty
That's
good.
a solid. That's a solid tier list.
Nice.
Obviously some of them are a bit terrain dependent. CK is a bit of an unknown, but yeah,
it really is the season of chaos, isn't it? Every single chaos army is A tier or S tier.
Yeah.
Wow.
What's going on here, man? Whisperings of the Warp, dude.
Pretty wild, yeah. All 4 of the new God Codexes are actually really solid. And 3 of them are like top of the meta kind of power level.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah. Well, guys, if you've gotten to the end here, just want to thank you very much. Just a quick reminder about the housekeeping we had at the beginning. And of course, check out 40kfireside.com where you can learn to get better at the game at the best price possible. Yeah. All right, guys.
And if you want our open group coaching sessions 4 times a month, make sure you do join at the Phoenix Lord level to get access to the Discord on YouTube.
Hell yeah, dude. No side, but the fireside. See you guys.
See ya.